intended for mature audiences.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. It is Thursday, December 18th, 2025. So top stories today, President Trump has to take to national television Wednesday night to remind Americans that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are responsible for their current economic woes. Also, why the Brown University shooting, the person of interest, why is Brown University covering for one of their students, Mustafa Karbouch, who has been fingered by the internet crowdsource investigators as a person of interest in the shootings. Going to get to these stories and more, over 45 headlines, if I can get through it. 45 headlines in the next hour. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the podcast. So let's read the news. All right, today we're going to start off with President Trump. News. The Associated Press has the headline, Trump gives a partisan primetime address insisting the economy is stronger. Today we're going to start off with President Trump. Voters feel. All right, I watched the address. It wasn't long. My only complaint was that it seemed like he was rushing through it, like he was trying to get through a lot of points. And that's like what I do here every morning, that I'm trying to get as much information out as I can within the hour. 45 headlines today to try to get through. And we're going to attempt to do that. There's a lot to cover, specifically surrounding the Brown University shooting, but let's stay with Trump for a minute. The Associated Press say it's a primetime partisan address. It wasn't really partisan. The issue is that what if Kamala Harris was president? You think things would be better? I don't think so. The Biden administration put us in such a mess that it was inextricable for many, because inflation, you can't get away from the inflation. It makes everything more expensive, and very likely your wage or your salary didn't keep up. New York Post has the headline, the Biden administration put us in such a mess. Trump tells America I'm fixing Biden's mess in chart-filled primetime address. So he likes charts. He had a lot of charts. You could look at your own charts. You don't have to look at Trump's charts. First of all, the rate of inflation under Biden is the most telling chart, let's just say. Not surprising. If you know what happened under the Biden administration, what's going on with liberals in general, the irresponsible fiscal policies of leftists, socialists, Democrats in this country, it's not surprising. And then the problem is also what we're finding is what they do with the money. You know, if it was really trying to help Americans and not residents here, legal or otherwise, from other countries. But what happens is you put the money out there and people go after it, certainly. So let's not go over what Trump said. Let's go over what Trump is doing. First of all, help Americans. Washington Post has the headline, Trump administration prepares sweeping crackdown, legal or otherwise, on leftist networks. The Trump administration is embarking on an expansive go over what Trump said. Let's go over what it sees as rampant left-wing domestic terrorism. Help American Washington Post has the headline, Trump administration prepares some security crackdown, legal or otherwise, the broad categories of Americans' political speech. The Trump administration is embarking on an expansive go over what Trump said. Surveillance. I thought it was already. They said they're monitoring what we're saying online, and then when something happens, all of a sudden, there's an issue. Oh, we didn't see this person. Come on. We know what leftists are saying online. We know what they're planning. And the point is that they're either being protected or they're being encouraged, or both, or nurtured. In any case, it goes on to say, we know what leftists are saying online. We know what they're planning. And the point is that they're either being protected or they're being encouraged, or both, or nurtured. So I'm gonna try this. Just bear with me here. I'm gonna try this OBS update. It's supposed to fix these glitches here. It's also a problem. I have a BitChute page open. I mean, just a little digression here. I have BitChute page open and it just started playing for no reason. So need to double check on that. That was kind of weird. BitChute has been doing that. It starts and stops. It goes off mute. So weird interaction there. Anyway, let's get back to the story here. Anyway, I was saying, Thursday marks the first deadline to set earlier this month. Memo from Attorney General Pam Bondi for all law enforcement agencies to coordinate delivery on their intelligence files on Antifa and Antifa-related activities to the FBI. Bondi has tasked the agency with those files to draw up lists of Americans and foreigners to investigate as part of a campaign directed by President Donald Trump against what his administration views as a growing threat of political violence by the American left. It's not necessarily what his administration views. It's what a lot of us view, if you care to look at the news and decide whether or not people on the left are foregoing dialogue and, first of all, being subjective and relative in their thinking, and then acting on that, or acting on that after reinforcement of subjective thinking by their peers online. And I'm going to get to some of that in a minute. It goes on to say, the left-wing organizations have fueled violent riots, organized attacks against law enforcement officers, coordinated illegal doxing campaigns, arranged drop points for weapons and riot materials, and more. Also, to be fair, I want to be careful about what I say here. Also, to be fair, is inciting and carrying out violence, anti-Semitic violence. The Trump administration will get to the bottom of this vast network inciting violence in American communities. Hold one second. Don't even know if you picked that up there. I just had a quick change. One America News, Trump service members will get $1,776, so that's $1,776, a warrior dividend for Christmas. Well, that's another good thing Trump is doing. I think he's planning the tariff dividend, but he's going to do it right before the midterms. He's got other stuff coming up. Don't forget that the big, beautiful bill and the tax cuts therein only goes into effect next week, in the beginning of January. So nobody's felt anything from that legislation, and that is the economic kicker. Combine that with some lowering interest rates, and we're going to be off to the races. But people don't understand that the ship of state, it takes a lot of time to turn around. And like Biden and the Democrats want to do is to put it up on the rocks, onto the reef. And so we have to get it off the reef. We have to plug any holes that might have occurred during the shipwreck. And then we have to turn it around and sail into better waters. Some more news from the New York Post. Long Island gas prices finally dipped below $3 as drivers catch a rare break at pump. Many people say it's about goddamn time. It is about time. If you might have felt it earlier in other parts of the country. I know Perry down in Florida says he's enjoying lower gas prices. And they are lower in different parts of the country, but the Northeast traditionally, and unfortunately where I live, has not seen the decline in gas prices that we had hoped we would see. Also in the news today, the Trump administration announces $11 billion Taiwan arms sale deal. This is from Fox News. China condemns the deal. The communist Chinese condemn the deal as pushing Taiwan straight toward military confrontation and war. We're already at war with the Chinese. It's fifth generational war. People have to get with the friggin' program. They're our nemesis. They're antithetical in terms of their political philosophy, which is most important, but they are a military and economic adversary, and at every step of the game, they make that perfectly clear. Excuse me. So I just want to take this time again to ask you to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast. Sorry I didn't have an episode yesterday. I'm usually live streaming 10 a.m. every morning, Eastern Standard Time, of course, on Rumble, YouTube, and other platforms. Yesterday I had to work. It was an emergency job. It came up, and work trumps this. Unless you want to contribute, I think I do have a Patreon channel. Feel free. But I'm sorry I didn't have an announcement. I did make an announcement on Tuesday night, episode 131 of Tuesdays with Perry. Check that out. We talked extensively about the Brown shooting, the shooting at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, among other things. So check out 131, the episode 131, Tuesdays with Perry. Went up Tuesday night. We usually go live around 9:15 on Tuesdays, Perry and I. All right, back to the news. Just the news. House passes legislation that makes performing transgender surgeries on minors a felony. Now, this is Marjorie Taylor Greene's legislation. The legislation titled the Protect Children's Innocence Act passed in 216 and 211 vote, which saw 207 House Democrats and 4 moderate House Republicans object to it. 3 House Democrats joined with their Republican counterparts to pass it. Now, this particularly makes it illegal to surgically modify or chemically modify the sex of children. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm unclear on whether, because what it does is it makes a felony for doctors who perform transgender surgeries and procedures on minors, and so that's not necessarily the hormonal therapy, and it's not even clear, at least it wasn't to me, whether that is with or without parental consent. As I mentioned previously, the legislation was introduced by Georgia firebrand GOP Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is set to retire from the House next month, which I think is just bad news. She was on Alex Jones the other day, and she was going off against Trump, and she had a laundry list of grievances with Trump. Trump's the leader of the party. He's the president. You're a Republican. Get the fuck on board. Why are you giving ammunition to the opposition? Ego is not your amigo. New York Post. Stay with me now. Trump administration probes Colorado after 221 dead people received federal housing assistance. And we're going to get to the point here in just a second about how America is the home of fraud, because there are all these little goodies that the taxpayer makes available for, supposedly, for down and out citizens. But it turns out they're game for everybody who happens to get into the country and throws together a NGO to start advocating for supposed people that are usually fake, and then they just keep getting the checks. But first, just the news. D.C. Mayor Bowser names new leader of police department after chief resigns amid crime stats probe. So it's not just citizens that are committing fraud. It's all over the place. It's a moral falter. The fact that people just lie. Now, it's not immoral necessarily to lie. That's why they say little white lies. But when you're responsible for giving correct information and you skew what you know, what you understand as being fraudulent, real numbers, and you're knowing what you're doing, that's problematic. So what happened in D.C. here is Metro Police Officer Pamela Smith, after she steps down at the end of the month. Smith announced her resignation last week after 2.5 years in the role, just before the Justice Department and the House Oversight Committee released reports alleging she manipulated crime statistics to give the appearance of less crime in the city. She lied. You know, the FBI was doing that for a while as well, skewing statistics in terms of what type of crimes were reported and the amount of those crimes. You know, so she just changed the prerequisite for the crimes to make it into the report. All right, let's get to the crux of the matter here. The Brown University bullshit is starting to get annoying. When I spoke to Perry on Tuesday night, I continually referenced the things that were bothersome, like that seemed to parallel and mimic the kind of shit we saw at Sandy Hook and the shit we saw in Las Vegas. This is a cover-up. I'm just going to go out there and say it, by a liberal state, a liberal city, a liberal university in a liberal city in a liberal state. Just as a aside, Adam Lanza, the supposed shooter at Sandy Hook, his uncle, who had a keen interest in young Adam, was a Rhode Island state police officer. That's just an aside. So New York Post says desperate Brown murder cops reduced to issuing photo of someone who may have come in contact with the killer. Okay, so this is the new development here, and I'm just going to show you the picture. So they said this person, who seems to be transgender, it's not really clear. We can't even tell whether that's a woman or not. That this person is now another person of interest. So just quickly, this person was also wandering around the neighborhood at the same time as the other portly young man, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But when this person saw the other person of interest, they turned around and started running away. Now, we don't know why that is. And many people have commented correctly that if these people, when you see the picture of yourself there on the TV, these people, if they were innocent, would turn themselves in and go, hey, I saw you put my picture up there. I didn't have anything to do with this, so you can ask me all the questions you want. You know, I'm not involved. But they didn't. And even law enforcement made that comment, as if these people were innocent. They saw the picture of themselves. If you were wandering around Brown campus on those specific streets the day of the shooting, you would say, hey, I'm here to help. You know, but they're involved. So one was a spotter, one was the shooter. Who knows? Maybe they were both spotters. You know, maybe the shooter was someone else entirely. We don't know. And Brown is being pretty tight-lipped. Yeah, I have an unrelated article. I got a lot to get through for this Brown thing. All right. So, there's more. So PJ Media has the headline, unfunny Keystone cops are investigating Brown University shooting. The police chief in Providence, Rhode Island, has a full deer in the headlights stare during every press conference. I feel for anyone who is attempting to do real journalistic coverage of this debacle. People keep writing, you're kidding, right? Yeah, and he doesn't have any information. He completely obfuscates whether or not, do they have footage of the shooting? Do they not have the footage? They keep saying there's footage inside the building, but it doesn't show anything. The crowd-sourced investigations work faster, right? So let them work. So the PJ Media goes on to say, it's been like supercharged fertilizer for conspiracy theories. And they go on to say, since COVID, it's that we tinfoil hat types are right about things an awful lot. Indeed. Because it's not hard to put together pieces. But the problem is there's fraud, there's cover-up, there's corruption. And that's why it is what it is. So they're obviously covering up for the shooting. Here's my analysis before we get to the next headline. The vice president of the Republicans at Brown University, which are probably a scorned group to begin with, I imagine the vice president, this Ella, forget her last name, this person, I bet you was trying to start a TPUSA chapter at the school. Probably opposed by the school, opposed by a great number of students, and vehemently outraged the transgender Free Palestine types there, who are prone to violence. Why? Because they can't win an argument. Violence is a tool of the weak-minded. All right, next headline up. One American News, FBI releases new video photos asking public for help in search for person connected to Brown shooting. They are? I don't think so. So they showed this person again, who just another person wandering around. We don't know. Here's the thing, is that right after the crowdsource investigators on the internet fingered Mustafa Karbouch as the portly man wandering around the streets around Brown University right before the shooting, as soon as he was fingered, the police now release this other photo who could be, it could be misdirection entirely. Stuff out of place here. Hold on. Start over there. So there's more. Before we get to Mustafa Karbouch, there's more to be concerned about. Associated Press, an MIT professor was fatally shot at his home, and police launched a homicide investigation. Nuno Loureiro, a 47-year-old physicist and fusion scientist, was shot Monday night, so 2 days after the shooting at Brown, and it's only 50 miles away, at his home in Brookline, Massachusetts. They didn't say that he was outspokenly Jewish and outspokenly a supporter of the state of Israel, which to many on the left would make him a Zionist. So the police say that the two were not connected. See, it's only 50 miles away. And they're still searching for the gunman who killed 2 students and injured 9. The FBI on Tuesday said it knew of no connection of the crime. Well, they knew of no connection doesn't mean there isn't one. It's like, you know, the omniscient investigators, if they don't know anything, then it's not true. And then Barron's has the headline, Hunt for U.S. college mass shooter drags into the 5th day. And look at this guy, Perez. He's such a little weasel. And you always know it's the same thing with the Las Vegas shooting. And when the sheriff got up there, you saw these hovering figures in the background, like staring him down, making sure, you know, he doesn't say anything that he's not at liberty to talk about. So obviously the DA, the governor, and the mayor are way above this guy who apparently had been charged with DEI operations at the department. So Barron's writes that a man with a rifle burst into a campus building at the Ivy League college where students were sitting exams, whatever that means. The man opened fire, killing 2 students and then fleeing. All right, so if you're an investigator or you're a journalist, questions you ask are how many shots were fired? What were the caliber of those rounds? So they were 14 students hit. They said, AP said there were 40 rounds shot. They clarified that it wasn't necessarily a rifle because one student said it was a long gun, which doesn't mean it's a long gun. It just means it was a long gun. It could have been a long pistol. It could have been a very big pistol, maybe with a silencer on it. Nobody asked that question. Were the gunshots suppressed? In other words, was there a silencer on the gun? That would make it look like a long gun. Some said that since it was 9mm, it was a small rifle, 9mm rifle. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. How do you classify a rifle from a pistol? You know. Perez also called on web users not to share artificial intelligence generated images linked to the shooting. The 2 students killed on Saturday were Ella Cook, Vice President of Brown's Republican Party Association, and Mohammed Aziz Uzmurzakov, originally from Uzbekistan. One survivor was in critical but stable condition. 5 other were stable, and 2 had been discharged. So that's 5, 7, 8, 2. So it's only 10 people were shot. 40 rounds, 10 people. Okay, who was shot multiple times? That would be another question a journalist should ask. How many shots? What were the caliber? How many people were shot? How many people were shot multiple times? Like if Ella Cook was shot 20 times and everybody else was just grazed or shot once. Because if you made it a targeted killing and you wanted to make it look like a mass shooting, you might, after you made sure you shot that one person, go around and shoot other people. So Donald Trump asked, why did Brown University have so few security cameras? There can be no excuse for that. And I agree. Seems like a cover-up. It's not even like it seems like a cover-up. It is a cover-up. Right? Did the guy have to open a door to get into the building? You find any fingerprints? How did the guy know? Good police work starts with a theory, right? A theory, not a conspiracy theory, a theory. Most deduction comes through theories. So you have to say, how did the guy know? Was someone targeted? How did the guy know where they were going to be? So that makes it a conspiracy. If the guy's not a student there, they would have to have help from inside the school. Which brings us to our next headline. This is just from News 18. I don't know if this is a real news channel or not, but their headline is, who is Mustafa Karbouch? Brown University faces heat for scrubbing his profile amid manhunt. The name Mustafa Karbouch, a first-year student and Palestinian refugee born in Lebanon, surfaced after Brown University was accused of deleting his online profile. So you might have heard this during the press conference. Real journalists asked why they were taking down web pages from the university because it contained this guy's name and picture. And why did they take it down? Because online investigators had found out that he matched the description of the person of interest. And if you look at it, it's a portly guy. It looks just like him, wandering around campus. So, plus, he's got motive because of his political leaning to be involved in some way, shape, or form. And I talked about, actually, Perry brought this to my attention during episode 131 of Tuesdays with Perry. From Just Mom's Justice or Justice for Moms or something like that. Mom's Justice Alerts. Brown University is hiding their favorite Palestinian radical. They took down his page where he was a research apprentice, Mustafa Karbouch, 27. So look at his picture. Looks like the guy. And there's more. So the left is violent and becoming violent, and they just need the okay to be violent, and they will. Because they don't want to upset the higher ups within the progressive liberal chain. So, and it has a lot to do with transgenderism and other crazy ideologies that are under the leftist umbrella. So you might have heard about this story. One American News: transgender veteran becomes fifth suspect arrested in the New Year's Eve bombing plot. Five people have been arrested in connection to the alleged New Year's Eve bombing plot by the far left extremist group. They wanted to recreate Waco. Fifth suspect has been identified as a transgender veteran. Authorities arrested 29-year-old Micah James Legnon, who went by Katira the Witch and Dark Witch She Her online. So, and this is, more fascist ranting. Yeah, this is just terrible. What was the name of the group? Yeah, it's the Turtle Island Liberation Front. So Turtle Island is supposed to be the North America home for Native Americans. Crazy. People are crazy. They're not, your thinking should always be tethered to something that stands the test of time. And also, you should always temper your ideas, your thoughts with either the opposite point of view or maybe something in the middle or any criticism that may come against your point of view. Because you have to be willing to have your mind changed. I'm willing to have my mind change. I haven't had a successful argument in that degree, though, or to that degree. So I haven't changed my mind. So please leave a comment if you wish or dare. I'm going to try to change my mind, but that's why leftists are violent, because they don't have a good argument. And the argument can't sustain scrutiny. All right, next up, just the news. Chicago mayor's policies drive businesses away, Illinois comptroller. That's funny. I mean, you just look at it. The Chicago mayor's policies drive businesses away. How are you supposed to pay for all your goodies, all your socialist goodies, for all the downtrodden masses in Chicago if you drive businesses away? There's one thing, I'm not a fan of big business, especially corporations and the political power they have, but come on. You have to encourage business and economic growth. It provides jobs. Those jobs and those businesses pay tax dollars, which then you socialists can allocate and give to others who don't want to work. One American News: Marco Rubio concedes 2028 GOP presidential nomination. Should Vance run, I'll be one of the first to support. Good. Because people were worried that Marco was going to run in a primary against Vance. The point is, you have to keep this ship going. So hopefully Vance takes over in 2028. Otherwise, and I think they're going to pull out all the stops, the Democrats and leftists are, to make sure that a Democrat wins. Next up, Zero Hedge. Pentagon escalates probe of Senator Mark Kelly over illegal orders video. See, I misplaced that. I misplaced that Marco Rubio was in the wrong order. I was trying to keep all the criminals together. So Senator Mark Kelly is a former astronaut and captain in the U.S. Navy. He's now facing a command investigation into his conduct by the Department of War. A command investigation is a procedure in which the commanding officer conducts an official inquiry into allegations of serious misconduct by a military person, which involves sworn witness testimonies, multiple personnel working on the matter, and the opportunity for the target to submit evidence in response. Here's the thing with Mark Kelly is Mark Kelly was an officer, and that's why his conduct is under such scrutiny. He was a military officer. Now, if a military officer in or out of uniform starts telling service members not to listen to their president or other officers, that could be seen as treason, even if he's not currently serving. It's part of the oath of conduct which officers take. It's criminal. What he did is criminal. It's all the same. It's part of the revolutionary nonsense that they're trying to ignite this civil war. They're trying to, well, they are triggering their little leftist cells and even their Islamic cells to heighten the fear. And hopefully they're thinking that somebody will strike out against somebody and then they could run with that. So the next one I wanted to get to was this Washington Post article, and not necessarily because what it said. You see this news? What Charlie Kirk's alleged killer told friends after the attack. So Washington Post is trying to give interference for the alleged shooter. So 55 minutes before he allegedly shot and killed right-wing political activist Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson was bragging about his success playing the online puzzle game Wordle. On September 10th, Robinson had guessed the answer pouty. He sent his results and celebratory meme to a friend. Hey, look, man. Let me tell you something. They were talking about this on the 5 yesterday. And they're all like, oh, I like Wordle. I don't like Wordle. Wordle. Online games and things online are used for people to pass code and to communicate. So who knows what the fuck his interaction with people on Wordle, maybe his contact. Maybe he was asked to communicate with his contact, his trigger, through Wordle. Because it seems so innocuous. Oh, it's okay. It's a game. But you can communicate with people during the game. But the Washington Post is trying to make it seem like, oh, look, he was playing a game right before the attack. It couldn't possibly be him. Because the leftists want to free leftists. Just like Kamala Harris wanted to raise money to help free rioters when they were trying to burn down the United States. You know, after George Floyd, it was really during COVID. So it was a double whammy there. All right, you might not have heard this. Fox News has the headline, Georgia mom fighting for life after acid attack ambush as FBI police search for assailant. Ashley Wazaliski was returning home from Forsyth Park when her unknown attacker poured acid on her. Now, who pours acid on women's faces? Anybody? Yeah, the Afghans do. That was a big thing in Afghanistan. Muslims do. If they think women are being too revealing and too prideful in their revealed appearance, in their nakedness, or if they diss a man, and you know, in some Islamic cultures they see the women as being subservient, that would get this reaction. Now, I'm not saying it was a Muslim, but this is their MO. It's also have been done in India by Hindus, but it was mostly done to women in Afghanistan. I'm not saying that other disfiguring attacks haven't happened to women, but look, she's a pretty woman. Like, women have been slashed in the face, etc., because they're pretty and some guy felt he was dissed by this woman. All right, next up, Real Clear Politics has Gutfeld's monologue on Rachel Maddow. And Gutfeld says Maddow is honored because she is wrong, providing an alternative reality. And it gets into quoting Gutfeld here as that because Maddow isn't paid to be right, she's paid to keep a dwindling audience from giving up altogether. She sells her drug to a shrinking mass, but along the way, she got hooked on the fumes. And yet here she is, honored, celebrated, canonized by people as wrong as she is. She broke no stories. Instead, she broke her brain and those of the others who listened to her. The reason Rachel Maddow was so successful is she looked like an American housewife that was about to cry every fucking second. And that was so concerned with what was going on in the United States under Donald Trump. And to admit, I listened to her for a while, but not when things started getting crazy. I don't know what I was thinking. Because in retrospect, she never substantiated anything she was saying. Next up, The Spectator, America's free speech war on the EU. The question is not whether the EU collapses, but when. And the point of the Spectator article and headline is that Europe is lost. Western Europe is lost. Conservative populism is trying to make a comeback all over, but they're not giving up easy. The EU and Ursula von der Leyen are stone cold villains. They're trying to undo all the progress that was made after the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, by general people. And they're turning back knowledge. They're turning back philosophy, all the gains we made in Western philosophy, turn back all the hard-won liberties, not rights, liberties for the individual that we earned, particularly free speech, which is the cornerstone, and get rid of all that because of what's coming. You can't have individuals with firearms and free speech and allow them to continue, and an internet connection and allow them to continue anonymously or not. And here's a favorite of mine, National Review, Symposium on Justice Antonin Scalia's Legacy 10 years later. Now, if you don't know Antonin Scalia he was the greatest conservative legal mind I think this country has ever seen. So all you knuckleheads who are out there complaining about authoritarianism and the cops are collecting DNA, well, Antonin Scalia's dissent on that opinion, I think, was the most brilliant thing he ever wrote, and obviously articulates the need and the importance of individual sovereignty, right? Because you don't even have to be convicted of a crime for them to take your DNA. They can just take it. And it goes well beyond law enforcement. It is very likely that everybody that's submitted to a COVID test may have had their DNA mapped, taken, databased. If you've ever participated in one of these ancestral tree nonsense genetic websites, they own your DNA, and you've given up your DNA that way. And your DNA is more specific than your fingerprint or your iris. So, and by the way, this little caveat, Antonin Scalia was murdered while he was on a hunting trip. right? And that was supposed to work out for the Democrats, but then Donald Trump got elected. Donald Trump? I think it was Donald Trump, but he got to appoint a replacement. The conspiracy goes on and on. Just look into it, Antonin Scalia's death. And then they took his dead body. They were supposed to take it directly to the medical examiner or the morgue, and they drove it around the desert for 12 hours. Next up, Business Insider, the United States of fraud. From shoplifting to gamifying returns, America's consumers are turning into cheaters. Without a doubt. Many crimes against big businesses they think as being righteous. Small acts of defiance that average shoppers commit without really even thinking about it. At first, there's the usual denial. No, I would never engage in the slightest level of fraud. Bullshit. Most people are liars and cheaters. They have no moral backbone. And I'm not moralizing here. I'm just saying that to live a life upright, with your chest out, with no regrets, and nothing to answer for, that's the way you want to go through life. So on your deathbed, you can look back and say, I wasn't a weak weasel, that I was strong and defiant despite whatever shortcomings you may have in life. You may be in need economically, or might not be the brightest bulb or whatever. But that's what they learned in antiquity, is that a lot of people had nothing, but at least you could have your pride. At least you could say, I went through life being morally righteous, whatever. At least you could be good despite everything. Not any longer. People don't have that moral framework because of organized religion. And I'm not a fan of organized religion, but you should have a moral framework that despite what happens, you'll do the right thing when the cock crows. Right? At first, but pretty quickly the confessions start to roll in. Okay, I sometimes ring up my organic apples as regular at the grocery store. That's cheating. That's fraud. That's actually stealing. And just because it's a big business or someone you might thought had ripped you off, some company that's treating you unfairly, maybe, doesn't matter. Just because, if a cashier fails to ring something up in your cart, you go back and you fucking pay for it. You don't go, wee, I won. You see someone drop $20, you don't put your foot on it. You go, sir, you dropped this. It's not being a sucker. It's doing the right thing. And you will get your reward now or later. I've returned an item after wearing it a time or two. Cheating. I have returned things I've washed. Like I tried to shrink something and it didn't shrink. And I returned it because it still didn't fit. But I didn't wear it, like wear it out. And then the other example was sneaking snacks into the movie theater, which strictly prohibits bringing in outside food and drink. I only did that with booze, and that was before movies theaters started selling booze. I never was one to bring in like secret snacks. I'm there to watch a movie. I'm not there to eat. Anyway, whatever. All right, next up. Just the news after closing arguments, California congressional redistricting suit in the hands of a 3-judge panel. Lawyers supporting and opposing California congressional redistricting maps made their closing arguments in a lawsuit Wednesday in a federal court. Now the case is in the hands of a 3-judge panel led by U.S. District Judge Josephine Staten. Judges will decide whether to grant the plaintiff's request for preliminary injunction. I don't know. It's in the hands of Judge Josephine Stanton. That doesn't make me too happy. Voters approved Proposition 50, which redrew congressional districts to pick up 5 Democratic House seats. That's after they voted to get rid of the bipartisan commission. So once they got rid of the bipartisan commission that was doing the redistricting, to be fair, they redistricted it all for Democrats. So I don't look at what the 3-judge panel did in Texas. They railroaded that one judge and put out their opinion before he could dissent. And the Supreme Court struck it down anyway, because if it's based on race, they found that unconstitutional. Okay. One American News, CDC officially updates hepatitis B policy, recommending individual-based decision-making for mothers. So the good thing about this is that there was some hullabaloo around this because people are like, because babies were required to get hepatitis B shots, but the risk of a baby contracting hepatitis B, unless their mother is a intravenous drug user or they have some other high risk, babies don't get hepatitis B. It's always based on risk to developing it. It's not an inherent disease like the measles or mumps or rubella. Next up, Fox News, Massachusetts drops controversial gender ideology mandate for licensing foster care parents. If you didn't know anything about this, federal regulators warned state policy violated constitutional rights of applicants. What Massachusetts was doing was saying, if your adopted child or your foster child said, I'm transgender, would you support their gender identity? Who says foster people have to do that? If you're a parent, foster or otherwise, you should try to help your children, foster or otherwise, make the correct choices to have a fruitful life, a good life. You know, and they say it's gender affirming care. It's just the opposite. It's gender rejecting care. Because it's not gender you were assigned at birth. It's what's your chromosome makeup, and do you have male or female genitalia? Doesn't matter what you feel inside. Fuck your feelings. New York Post, Dan Bongino to leave FBI deputy director job with rumored replacement waiting in the wings. I don't know who that is, and I don't care. Good, Dan. You didn't belong there anyway. They should have. Kash Patel should have done what he said he was going to do, was just totally revamp the FBI. They should have got rid of the agency or gutted it entirely, or because there's shit happening at the FBI that the higher-ups don't even know about. It's all siloed, covert work. That is really, some of it's really despicable. Any case, going back to the headlines. One American News, New York. Governor Hochul set to sign bill legalizing doctor-assisted suicide. So we're going the way of Canada. This is what the Federalist says. State-sanctioned suicide is the 4th leading cause of death in Canada. Canada's government-run euthanasia program increased its death toll again last year, taking more than 16,000 lives. Placing medically assisted suicide as the 4th leading cause of death in the country. That's fucking scary. According to an annual report published by the Canadian government, 16,499 people were killed through medical assistance in dying, the MAID program, in 2024, increasing 6.9% from the previous year. Close to 79% of the 22,535 people who applied for the program were approved. Of course. And now Kathy Hochul wants to do that. She's a little monster. She's another comic book villain. All right, next up. Maryland to consider slavery reparations after Governor Wes Moore's veto is overridden. Holy shit. Reparations for what? Didn't you get your 60 acres and a mule? I don't believe in reliving the past. Okay. If you're going to do something like that, go, okay, for every black person that has taken a federal assistance dollar, that's going to be subtracted. Every dollar is going to be subtracted from your reparations. And then if you have wealth, then you don't need reparations. The Federalist again, Christian woman charged again for silently praying outside of UK abortion clinic. Isabel Vaughn Spruce has been under investigation since January for the influence she supposedly exhibited in her silent vigil for life. Yeah, what a ridiculous, silently praying outside, and she's like across the street. She's in front of the building, but across the street. She's not even keeping people from entering. She's not obstructing anything. She's not holding a sign. She's just standing there. That's what I mean. You wonder why the U.S. is at war with the UK over free speech. You can't stand somewhere. Come on. That's why we have a constitution, because that shit is protected. Not only could you stand there, you could stand there with a sign. In a lot of instances, you could obstruct people from going into businesses. You're not able to by law, but people do it anyway. Next up, the Washington Post, why U.S. and Chinese satellites are dogfighting in orbit. The American patrol satellite had its targets in its sights. Two recently launched Chinese spacecraft were flying through one of the most sensitive neighborhoods in space. Like a good tactical fighter, the American spacecraft, known as USA 270, approached from behind so that the sun would be at its back, illuminating the quarry. But then the Chinese satellites countered by slowing down. As the U.S. satellite zipped by, the Chinese satellite dropped in behind its American pursuer. Yeah, well, we're at war with China. And Russia, really. It's just so fucking stupid. It's just so stupid. Why? The reason why is they want to bring in a third world war where the United States will absorb a nuclear strike from Russia and capitulate their role as a world leader. Let China take that role. That would get rid of the impetus for freedom and liberties to be spread around the world. And that's what is behind all this academia pushing America is bad. Because if everybody thinks America is evil, then if it absorbs a nuclear strike on its military that makes its military that much weaker and then doesn't respond, that makes the plan for the New World Order that much easier, which is to get rid of personal sovereignty, personal privacy, personal liberties, political liberties, individual liberties that each person deserves, God-given, et cetera, and go on into the communist New World Order where there'll be no God. There'll only be the Antichrist of the singularity, et cetera. All right. I don't want to go off too much. Zero Hedge, Russia deploys entire fleet of nuclear icebreakers to the Arctic. That's because we're at war with Russia. Fox News, anti-Semitism exposed. Newsletter, Australia pays the price for coddling extremists. If you didn't know, even John Fetterman chimes in and says allowing anti-Semitism and hate generally from the left, doesn't matter, to continue to simmer without public condemnation is tacitly approving the next step, which is violence. And then the Federalist again. There's no evidence Australia's strict gun control laws are effective. No, they're not. Ever since the Port Arthur shooting, mass shootings are purposefully contrived to take people's gun rights away, particularly in the West. The Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, reinforced his narrative on Monday after the massacre. They have made an enormous difference in Australia, and they're a proud moment for reform, quite rightly achieved across the parliament with bipartisan support. Taking people's guns away is the worst thing to do. It gives more control to the state, more power to the state, and less power to the individual. That's what you want. And then the Federalist goes on to say, before and after averages of Australian gun deaths are grossly misleading. Firearm homicides and firearm suicides declined steadily for roughly 15 years before the 1996-1997 confiscation. As a result, analysts could choose almost any year during that period and show lower average firearm death rates afterward than before, regardless of whether the law had any effect. And it really didn't. You know that to be true is it just makes people more vulnerable. That's the whole point of civilian ownership of guns is to keep criminals at bay. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast. We didn't do too bad. It's an hour, 7 minutes. Hour and 5 minutes, 45 headlines we got through. So we need to find out whether the authorities in Providence, Rhode Island are going to question Mustafa Karbouch. He fits the description of the person of interest. They keep saying, if anybody knows a person that fits the description, call police. And you have everybody on the internet know it's this guy. Plus he's got motive. And they're like, no, we don't hear you. We're going to take his website. We're going to take any reference to this guy down off the Brown website. That's a cover-up. Anyway, I'm not saying the guy did it. I'm just saying he matches the description. And people are saying he would have motive to attack, especially a Republican. They don't want to know that. It's like with Jesus. We're waiting for the Messiah. But it's not him. Right. Thanks for joining me. Live stream every day, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Rumble, YouTube, other various platforms. Check me out on social media. And remember, you're under attack psychologically and biologically. Stay hip to the trick. I'll see you tomorrow. Respect.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.